Alright, welcome back everybody to another Culz Reviews. Because it's April 19th, we're looking at the Oklahoma City bombing situation with the PBS 2017 documentary Oklahoma City. Alright, so I guess we can start it off. The story is a story of two stories. The first story is obviously that day, the bombing, news footage and different footages of the Murrah Building after it had obviously been bombed, and them trying to go in and rescue these people, mixed with kind of what led up to maybe what caused McVeigh to do this. Into McVeigh's story, him getting all the supplies, and then it at one point connects, and then the story is over. So, first off, Matt, do you want to talk about maybe that day if you remember anything about it? April 19th, 1995.
Well, yeah, again, 95, I was in elementary school. Geez, 5th grade. We were in, 5th grade, TV got brought in. Again, just because it's world news, your teacher, I don't know, again, it's what they do in schools. Something happens, TV's on, whatever, radios. But no, I remember the teacher wheeling in the cart. It was after coming, I think it was inside from a recess. We had noticed the TV was set up in the room, and it's like, oh, TV, movie time, or something. No, and TV.
Yeah, because
teacher
every
turned
time
it on,
they
and
bring
yeah.
it in,
Well, as a kid, you're given not false hopes, but when you see a TV, you're getting ready to watch something, or
Bill Nye usually.
Yeah. But yeah, no, they started watching it, and you really can't fathom it at that age, like what was happening. It was something bad. You saw the destruction, and it was like, oh boy, and just a different feeling than, like I said, now as you grow up, when these events happen, there's just so much more energy and emotion there.
And you've
isn't it
lived, and you understand, you can process it maybe a
Yeah,
little bit more.
and as an adult, you can now understand why your teacher broke down in tears in front of you and was sitting in the corner crying. As a kid, you're like, wonder if she knew. You're not understanding. Now you understand because you have that connection with the world and the events, and you realize that this is a terrorist action, it is a terrorist attack, and you feel for those right away.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I briefly remember seeing it on the news. Obviously, it would have been national news that day and for a while after. But I definitely remember at least the shots, the overhead shots that you see many a time of just the whole side of the building gone. But that's really all I remember in 95. Obviously, as I've grown up, I've learned more about it and recently been out to the memorial. And I think when you're there, especially at the memorial, because they have it set up with empty chairs, and then there's just a little chair, and I think that kind of hits you. Especially now as a parent, I'm just like, oh. Sam, do you remember?
I don't remember anything. I was only 3 at the time, so my mind was off in
Just
all
being
sorts
a
of weird imaginations.
3-year-old, yeah.
3-year-old imaginations. Like, if my parents were watching it, I don't remember it. Or if they even let me watch it at that point, because it could take a toll on a kid to watch something that young, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was too young. Don't remember that far.
Yeah, so obviously, unfortunately, I think everybody knows the story of what happened, That morning, about 9:02 a.m., a truck bomb went off outside the Murrah Building, and fortunately 168 people died, 19 of which were children. They accidentally arrested Timothy McVeigh, and because he had signed his name at a hotel, that's how they caught him. And it, much, I guess, like another recent event as far as April, with John Wilkes Booth, Timothy McVeigh pretty much admitted to it right away and didn't feel any remorse about it and definitely wanted the credit. So yeah, I guess that's the basic story. We're going to maybe dive into maybe things we learned or didn't know about, or maybe we knew about and just had it expanded a little bit. So Matt, what was something for you that stuck out?
Well, I think a lot of it, again, just because of the young age, you don't really realize the history that was behind it. So I think the whole story out of Waco, how they had some involvement and ties there, I honestly, even today, didn't know about that. And I learned a lot about how McVeigh used that situation as like one of his driving forces to commit the crime that he did. I mean, that was all new for me and just kind of eye-opening.
Yeah, because obviously he had picked that day as like symbolic because that was the Waco incident when the cult headquarters kind of burned down. Well, not kind of. I mean, it burned down pretty fast. And yeah, you definitely it shows him there. He was selling bumper stickers, but even at the time the news is interviewing him, it's just weird, like to think that you could watch the news today and see someone 3 years down the road that could do something really bad and not even know it.
Yeah.
Sam?
The whole thing was kind of new to me because I didn't know too much of the event, and since I was so young, it was kind of never mentioned to me. So unfortunately, this is kind of like new news to me, almost. But definitely upsetting and sad at the same time.
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of it, even though I've heard like Ruby Ridge or, Waco, I think it definitely expanded, and I definitely didn't know some of the backstories of those. You kind of just hear the outcomes. And so to hear the entire story is just eye-opening. And again, it's just like, the conversation we were having was just like, how can people be that stuck to somebody, in Waco where they were just giving their children away, and, Matt was trying to, like, think rationally, but, like, these people are so gone at this point. Like, they've bought into the cult's message so much that at that point, without the cult leader, they're nothing, and it's just, wow, how did someone get that far, It's terrible. And, having just been out to Oklahoma City to see it, expand on it and hear some of the families and stuff makes it even more kind of heart-wrenching in a way. Especially when they're talking about seeing, like, the kids being brought out and...
No, that one really, like, I don't have kids of my own, but being an educator, to hear them talking about the stories that the kids were, the nursery was 25 feet away from the blast. I mean, it just
One side it was
tears
50,
you.
I thought.
Well, the group of kids was 50.
The group of kids was 50.
Yeah,
but,
their group of
some,
kids.
The,
Yeah.
the whole, like, part of the building was 25, okay.
Yeah, because if you go there now, they still have where the playground would have been at the memorial.
Yeah, and see,
And
and stuff
that-
like that really, I think, would hit. But to hear the officers saying, they're being given these lifeless bodies to help carry to the next part in line, and I think there was at one point he didn't want to let go.
Yeah.
He held one child and just,
Even though he knew it was...
yeah. I mean, in your heart of heart, you're hoping just make a noise, make some sort of movement, anything, and I honestly, I can't, fathom it.
Or the story of that one lady who had her leg amputated, and how they, they couldn't get through with all the stuff they had, so they had to use a pocket knife. And they were in a spot of the building that was, like, super prone to collapsing. Like, they were watching it and they were told, if it shakes even a little, you gotta get out.
Yeah.
And at one point they discovered what was a prop bomb that the FBI used to kind of just, I guess, train with.
Yeah.
And so they evacuated the building, and these people didn't leave her down there. They kept trying to work to get her out, And they probably wouldn't say they were heroes now, but they were just doing their jobs. But I'm sure she saw them as heroes. And
Well, and her family saw them as heroes. They didn't leave their loved one behind. They stuck it out with them, and
even though they, at that point, they didn't know it was a prop, they were just going, they thought they could die, but hey, I'm going to
gut
try
reaction,
anyway.
man, tells you run, and I'm sure there were people in there running to run. Like, I'm getting out of here, you know, after seeing the devastation that the original bomb did. I mean,
Yeah, and it's something we look back at with 9/11, where the firefighters were still running in there even as the buildings were collapsing, and it's...
and I think there's the one actor famous, is it not Bellucci, but
Yeah, Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi,
Yeah,
who
just showed up one
immediately
day.
just showed up. All right, hey, whatever, let's do it. Let's like there were people, and it's that firefighter mentality. I think that when everyone's running one direction, they're running the opposite. They're that salmon swimming upstream to get where help is needed and do it, you know?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of heroes came out of it trying to help and just do a job that you can tell in the interviews, even to this day, still negatively affects them. I mean, still scar them very deeply. And, like, it's just, you can't imagine.
And the sad thing is, in our society, is we are so fascinated with who committed the crimes than the stories of the heroes. I mean, if you were to ask me, you know, before seeing this documentary, name the heroes of Oklahoma City.
But you could name
I would name McVeigh and Nichols like that.
I mean, it's...
Yeah.
And not saying
Unfortunately,
that
it's the same way. I mean, if you look at Columbine,
Yeah.
the people probably don't know a lot of the names unless they were affected,
Yeah.
which is tomorrow, unfortunately. You know, 9/11, some of the hijackers people can even talk about. They obviously know Al-Qaeda more than the people.
Yeah. But I mean, and like I said, in today's society, it just gets embedded in your head. It's not like I wanted to know that, but that's all we've been taught. And I do like that we're making a push in today's society to, you know, say their name once and then that's it. They're now known as, you know, this
Just the
worthless piece of
person,
crap or something
yeah.
like that. But, you know, get their name out there so you know that name, and then we stop saying it.
True.
Let's focus on the victims. Let's focus on the heroes. Let's focus on the people who attempted to make a difference.
Yeah. Let's
You know.
tell the right stories. I mean, we see this a lot too, like, with real any tragedy, there's a lot of, like, heroes that aren't, they won't say they're heroes, they're just doing their job.
Yep.
Going back to even the Titanic one we watched, where they helped save more lives by trying to work harder. No one can name them.
Yeah.
They can name
Yeah.
false characters made
Or-
for movies more than that.
Or some of those crewmen who realize, like, we're sending these lifeboats out half full, get back there, get these boats, like, more loaded, let's find, and, you know,
Well, it's like-
unfortunately at that point it was almost too late. I mean, they pulled,
Some people,
I think maybe under 10 they were saying, back out of the water to save, but
yeah.
it's crazy. And, you know, another tragic event that was, you know, maybe 3 years ago was the Las Vegas shooting. You use that as it. I watched a documentary the other day, which was really cool to find out that it could have been a lot bigger, but there were two hotel workers that had to do service, or there was an alarm triggered, and they went up and all of a sudden started realizing stuff wasn't adding up. And they started seeing some of this by going up to the floor, and they were able to kind of radio into Las Vegas PD where stuff was going on, so they were able to track the shooter down a lot quicker and put an end to it. So again, this is another event we could be talking about where we're looking at well into 100 casualties as opposed to 58.
Yeah.
Or 53, 58, I think it was.
You know, maybe this is something that we should try to do with our channel, is actually tell some of the hero stories, I guess.
Yeah.
Try to get them out there so people know their names. I mean,
Yeah, I
that
agree.
might not be a bad idea.
Let's
No,
focus
that's a
on
good idea.
the heroes, and whether you think you're a hero or not, you are a hero because you saved a life. And
I mean, you went back into danger
Yeah.
when people would have much rather have
take that
gone
away.
away.
You put someone else's life before yours.
Yeah,
Mhm.
when you, it's just in situations that I don't think we can imagine. Obviously, we can go these places, you can see the destruction it caused, but unless you're there, you can't really imagine the smells. And it was something like in New York going there shortly after 9/11, you could still smell the fire, you could still smell like the flesh being burned. And like, you just can't imagine like how
It was in the
it
moment.
was that moment, like, and I guess it's just adrenaline.
Mm-hmm. You ignore all
What
the
do they,
smells.
what do
at
they
the
call it?
moment.
The mother bear adrenaline, where
Oh yeah.
when your heart gets going, you can move a mountain and not even realize you can do it because your adrenaline is that driving force.
Yeah, it's just, you are not thinking, you're not you're just reacting subconsciously in a way.
True.
Alright, so I guess, I mean, we actually talked quite a bit, so this brings us to our recommendations and ratings. Matt, what would you rate it first, and would you recommend it?
I mean, it was great. I mean, not great in the sense of it being great, but I mean, it was a really enlightening document. I mean, if you don't have the background on this was great. I would definitely give it, a 10 out of 10. I mean, it filled in a lot of information. It did a little bit of the backstory. It took you into the life and the backgrounds of the people who committed the crime just to help get you a better understanding of them. I would recommend it for those that, kind of want some more history on what happened that day and maybe why it happened.
Sam?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Matt. 10 out of 10. It was really good, really well portrayed. It does kind of like jump back and forth like a Tarantino film, and I didn't know if we were talking about the same thing at one moment, but it was definitely really fascinating. Very sad. I definitely had tears in my eyes at moments just from it, and a very touching film. Very touching film. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna have to agree with them as far as rating, and obviously I'd recommend it. And like Sam said, there was times like your eyes tear up, especially when they showed the pictures of the kids. I was just like, that was tough.
Yeah, so maybe attention to graphic detail on that one too. They don't blur it out.
No.
I mean,
Yeah, they don't show like some
well,
of
it's
the
not
things they,
totally gnarly either.
but there is lots of blood seen,
Yeah.
lots of gore. The lady's leg is crushed. I mean, you see that.
Oh.
So I mean, yeah, if you're squeamish to blood at all, there's definitely some parts that you're not gonna want to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, this ends our review. It's been kind of a weird little month. April apparently has a ton of
Incidents.
incidents.
Lots of interesting things.
Especially like in that week time period where you get Titanic,
Yeah, you
Oklahoma
got
City, and Columbine.
yeah. So April 14th, the Titanic struck the iceberg and sank the 15th. Also on the 14th, John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln, and he hung on until the 15th. And then today, obviously, Oklahoma City, and then tomorrow is Columbine. In a few more weeks, we have the Lusitania sinking when it was torpedoed. So, unfortunately, we're going to have a lot of these. We are going to re-release our Oklahoma City memorial video, though. So if you're watching this and haven't seen it, stay tuned. That will be appearing in about an hour at 9:02. We're going to release it. And then tomorrow we do have something planned for Columbine as well. Obviously, because it happened here, and maybe it started, at least for some of us, we really could start processing it a little bit more. So yeah, if you want to see more Culz reviews, not all of them are this solemn, obviously. Check out that link in front of Matt's face. If you want to see more of what we do here at Culz Paranormal, click that link right over here. And don't forget to hit that like and give us a
Subscribe.
And switch that notification bell from personalized to all if you want to be notified on all of our videos.